fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your bed many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jim Baldini. That guy over, I always mess this up. That guy over there,
without the hat.
The guy without the hat is my brother. So there you go. There we go. So we are the Brotherhood of Liberty together. We are actual brothers. This is not something that should surprise you because we are both wearing Hawaiian shirts.
That's the thing with our show, right? Because we love
Magnum. One of the things.
Namaste.
Yes, Magnum. Yes.
Namaste.
The original Magnum, John. The original Magnum.
Not the fake one.
Tom Selleck Magnum.
Yeah. Because he looks just like our other brother, one of our other brothers.
Exactly. Right. Yes, exactly.
We got all the looks in the family.
And he had the red sports car too, remember? That red Supra.
Yes, he did. And he was mother's favorite.
He was. So what do we have for the show tonight? Do we have a show for you tonight, brother? We have lined up for another stunning night. We have the Baldini and Evolution.
Now the Baldinian evolution, not Darwinian. Baldinian. We believe in Baldinian
evolution.
Oh, Baldinian. Okay. We make it just like Darwin is narcissistic enough to call his Darwinian. We're going to have it. We're going to call it Baldinian.
Yeah, that's misspelling then for everybody who showed up at the show thinking it says Baldini and Evolution. That's my fault because I didn't hear it right. And I didn't ask for him to clarify. So that's on me. Then Trafficking in the USA Today. And You Are the Enemy.
Yes. Well, I guess we're going to do You Are the Enemy first.
Yeah, well, it's whatever order we hit it.
Because we're talking about masks.
Yeah, because we're gonna be talking about updates first. So updates are our first thing on the list. We have. Let's start off with probably many of you are familiar with what's going on because of. We're going to talk a couple things about January 6th. So first off, we're going to talk about those who have been locked up. Now, recently, four congressmen went down to the deplorables prison and went in there to get a look-see to see what's going on, because we've heard stories where they've spent 23 hours a day in solitary, less than 1 hour out into the public or out into the yard. They have little or no interactions with other people. We've seen a number of things like this, number of reports. Good evening to you, by the way, Viola DeMarc. Good to have you aboard. But, brother, so we have our first thing on our list is we have these four congressmen. We have Gomer, and they showed up. There's another video that shows them showing up and standing at the front of the entrance trying to get access. I'm going to cut to the quick, and this is Gomer giving a very short example of what they said, why they would not give them a tour when they asked for one. Here we go. So I don't know if you heard what he said, and
I did.
That expression on Gomer's face is perfect for the response that he got. They said that the congressman, and you can't see Matt Gaetz, he's behind there. These four congressmen were trespassing, John. They were trespassing, and the lead up to this is Gomer spends a good bit of his time going from checking out the prisons in his own district and federal prisons, just making sure that there's nothing bad going on there. So we see, here he is with three other congressmen trying to get in there, and they said, "You're trespassing." John, isn't it something that all of a sudden congressmen get called for trespassing? Isn't that something?
They're part of the insurrection.
Yeah, it's absolutely ridiculous. This is another example of the abuse of power from the federal level down. There's another example of we have an unchecked power in the White House, the guy, the guy who's sleeping next to the woman who thinks is his sister, and when we have a complete failure of like overwatch on these, because of course the
Oversearch.
Justice Department, the oversight Justice Department doesn't care, and these guys going down there to do oversight get kicked out. What kind of nonsense is that? So that's thing one, and related to that. No, that wasn't it. It's out of order. I'm just gonna have to come back. Yeah, no, where was it? It was here. You go, Kinzinger, John. Here's our little thing on Kinzinger. Connected to that, of course, January 6th, we had the collection of idiots talking about what being some type of insurrection, and it wasn't an insurrection. That's not how you define
House
insurrection.
investigation.
House investigation. Any historian would be able to tell you. If they're a real historian, they'll be able to tell you exactly what an insurrection is. This wasn't it. But I want you to hear this rhino. I mean, I don't even think he's a rhino. I don't even classify. Rhino is too good of a term for this guy. He reminds me of the guy who was the best student in the school at my high school. He just looks like him a little bit too, and this is the kind of response I would expect from him. Will somebody please defeat this clown in the next election? Please, please, please.
James, I didn't hear any of that. Did you?
You didn't hear any of it?
No.
Huh. I hope that if you guys out there couldn't hear it, please let us know. But he's crying. He's crying. He's talking about how horrible the insurrection was and how bad it was. So I would say, John, and the part of this is they talked about how the police officers were called these terrible names. John, as a guy who worked the unit, tell a little bit about your unit, what you did, and tell me, did you ever get called names on the job?
Well, I happen to have the fortune to work in a large 1,000, well, actually it was like 1,200 person jail at one point in my life, and it's one of those things that comes along with the uniform, being called names. And not only that, having urine thrown at you, feces thrown at you, spit, and everything else under the sun that they can, it's not nailed down. Our picnic tables were this thick because they were made out of concrete. They were literally picnic tables were made out of concrete that were this thick. I mean, the board part, and all the legs for it, because you can pick up a picnic table. You couldn't pick up a picnic table that's made out of concrete this thick though, because it's too heavy.
Right.
Otherwise, it would have been thrown too. So, I mean, it's one of those things that goes along with the business. You think that somebody had talked to him in a harsh manner before, but as today we are seeing the advent of spoiled Americans. It's not inconceivable this person was raised in a hothouse somewhere and like a greenhouse, and it's never ever had anything mean said to him, and that could be very traumatic. I'm sure he expects he expects safe places, and to be able to retreat to a safe place when somebody says a mean word to him.
I guess so, John.
What if this was a terrorist? I can't imagine.
Yeah.
This is something bad. These were fine, upstanding Americans, law-abiding Americans. This nut job, we covered it before. This officer who has finger on the trigger, let one off, could have killed the attack team coming down the stairs. Could have killed any of the people in the room, because he's obviously a panicker and had his finger on the trigger. And yet now we're getting up the parade of crying. And so we used to say back when I was a canine officer too, we had a saying among officers, always testing each other, are you scared? We tease each other. Are you scared? If you're scared, just say so, because then we know you sit in the truck and you stay there. We'll handle it. So are you scared?
Yeah.
Apparently, these guys are very, very scared of everything, including your shadow.
So they they were called a lot of bad names, a couple of racist
Horrible.
names, and so I'm sure you've dealt with a number of those things on your own, brother, when you were there. And these guys are the Capitol Police, right? To be clear, their budget is larger than some major cities in our country. They have, and it's only growing, by the way. Not to mention that in the city of DC, there's dozens of different other police agencies that are available that could have been used and brought in to protect the Capitol that day, but weren't. And so there's no investigation into that. But brother, I wanted to also mention there is another, you might remember this one back from last year, January 1st.
Anyone who's in front of them, back out of the way.
Can you hear that, brother?
We're watching now.
Yeah, I can hear that now.
Far enough down 8th Street that they've sort of gotten in front of this building that's now totally engulfed. And here's what I'm talking about.
By the way, that's in front of St. John's Church. You'll see just before St. John's, this is the night St. John's caught on fire. You just saw the fire across the street from it. That fire will be lighting, the protesters will be lighting that up soon enough. And you'll be able to see the placard that President Trump stood in front of when he held up the book. That will be, you'll see just the side of it on your left side of the screen. So, but these guys are totally not violent at all, John. And 16 of these Secret Service agents went to the hospital that night, and a whole bunch of others throughout that entire period. Yeah, when these guys were mostly peaceful. And you'll even hear this clown mention that.
All right. So now we're moving back up down 16th Street, obviously at the direction of what I must say is a U.S. Park Police, not MPD. Moving
There's the
again
St. John's
back.
Church right there.
If I can pan, Tracy, can you swing to the right a little bit here and see? This is, a mix of folks who are trying to make a point of being peaceful here, trying to make a point to kneel, to keep
trying to make a point of being peaceful as they throw rocks and bricks, and they of course lit a building on fire.
Their hands up, and a bunch of folks who aren't throwing bottles, rocks, fireworks, anything they can get their hands on.
Not one kneeling person.
Impossible for the peaceful protesters to make any other statement other than that they gotta go, because the folks who are here to fight their police have their moment now, because Park Police.
The only ones who are being peaceful, John, are the ones who are holding up the cameras. They're being mostly peaceful because one hand's holding the camera, the other's holding a rock that they're throwing. So that's the only mostly peaceful that
and that's not an insurrection, although it's targeting the building right next to the White House.
Yeah, no, it was targeting the White House. They don't make no mistake, John. They wanted to break in and kill President Trump. That's what their goal was.
That's not an insurrection, though. All right,
that's not an insurrection. Nor is it to be clear. Also, they had a congressional hearing on this, John. There's a congressional hearing on it. Unfortunately, it wasn't about any insurrection. What it was about was who used the tear gas on these poor rioters. That's what the congressional hearing was about, brother. Can you imagine anything dumber than something like that? Yes, Elaine. Yes, put them in prison. These guys should be put in prison.
And they're not. Those guys were not put in prison.
No, but these guys should be the ones in prison.
But a bunch of nice citizens wandering through their house, the Capitol building, with no criminal records, were put in prison. Okay.
Right. That's right. That's exactly right. So next thing I wanted to talk about is, of course, today, John, 40 years ago was the start of MTV, and as somebody says in the comments here, the 2 hours that they show here of music from MTV is more music than you've seen on MTV in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Sad, but true. Sad, but true. One more thing. This is you're going to love. First of all, here's President Trump showing up at his Bedminster Country Club, where there's a League of America First Women who are meeting, and he says, "Oh, let me stop by and say hi." So watch their reaction. You can hear they're cheering. It's going to pan to the side there. Look at all those people, all those women cheering. John, they're not cheering for Joe Biden. They're cheering for President Trump.
You're so
they
cruel,
are cheering
brother.
for President Trump.
Brutal. That's so
And in
brutal.
fact, a couple of the people that I'm friends with were actually there and got a chance to get some pictures. It was quite impressive. I'm quite happy for them. So, John, I wanted to do a contrast because Bongino did this, and I'll give him full credit for it. But it's not his idea. It's clearly just the way America rolls. Now, Biden went over to Scranton or to Allentown, which is right next to Scranton. We know it's not that far. In New Jersey, in our neck of the woods area, New Jersey, and the distance from stuff where we live, and we grew up. Allentown and Scranton are right next to each other. They're like an hour away, but that's right next to each other. So Allentown is now going to have Biden come through, and he goes to this plant, and here's Biden's here's everybody giving Biden what they think about him as he's driving through with the motorcade. Just to be warned, you're going to be upset if you get upset about profanity. This is going to upset you, so you might want to turn the camera. Turn the show off. You might notice, John, there's a number of people saying that he's number one. He's number one. You see that? Do you see?
That's his biggest crowd as Trump got. For once he's matching
look,
Trump.
John, I got to pull back for just a second here. There is one person there celebrating. She'll see her waving at Biden. Watch. There she is. See? One person waving. Isn't that great?
James, he won Pennsylvania. I keep telling you. I keep telling you. Biden won Pennsylvania. Look at that large crowd he has there.
Look at that crowd there supporting him. They're coming out and letting us know how they feel.
They're not really supporting him, right? But
no, they're supporting John. They're saying he's number one.
He finally has the crowd as big as Trump's. Congratulations, Joe Biden.
Exactly. Yes. And they're screaming. They're just not screaming. They're about happiness.
Yeah,
right?
see how excited they are?
Yeah, really excited. Oh, isn't that wonderful?
New York Times headline: crowd is bigger than Trump's and excited. That's what the New York Times lying creep press will say. Fake journal will say.
So, John, and keeping in the same area because Scranton is, Joe Biden's hometown. We have this Teddy Daniels is a guy. He ran last term 2020, and he lost to the primary to somebody else who lost in the general. This guy here, Teddy Daniels, is got this awesome commercial. It is a really, really good commercial. And John, I want to know if you can see his violin. I'm going to just say that. So I want you to think, where's his violin? Okay, he's got a violin.
I can't see.
That's better, Teddy. Look at you now. See, if you don't do it our way, we won't back you. We pick who wins and loses around here.
You know what? I'm not doing this fake, phony, elitist BS. It's not me. I don't need you, and I'm not going to let you clowns muscle me. I'm not doing this for you. I'm Teddy Daniels, and I'm running for Congress in Scranton, Pennsylvania. You know, Joe Biden's hometown. I despise swampy, sellout politicians, and that's exactly why I'm running. I'm tired of these elitist suits who have sold out our country, and something needs to be done about it. These establishment sellouts are completely out of touch with real America. They are nothing more.
Shout out to Billy Prempe, who's the black gentleman up on the vehicle there. He's running in the 9th Congressional District, so shout out to him. Let's continue with the video.
For the bought and paid for hacks who sell out America and the individual freedoms and liberties of everyday people like you and me. Hell, they'll even eat their own for $1. They don't care.
See his violin, John? There's his violin.
Protecting your freedom of speech, your right to bear arms, or even election security. They're more concerned about appeasing the left than they are standing up for us. Time to.
Of course, John. What's his violin?
A Tommy gun.
Yeah, it's very good, brother. Very good. We have to watch the rest of it. It is an amazing video.
I'm in there. That's a great. I'm voting for that guy. That guy's
he's in
my
the
hero.
district actually one over from where I live, so that's the same district that Scranton's in. But it's great commercial. This is the kind of Republican that we're running. Of course, John, America first, man. Boom, pulls the Superman shirt out like that. Superman pose, America first. So that's it for the updates, brother. I wanted to finish off with that. We have here we go. I think that's a pretty good defining moment for us to move on from to your segment, which is
about the master back. Are you the enemy? So I was reading an article about St. Louis, and apparently St. Louis and LA are now reimposing the mask. And knucklehead idiot Fauci was on TV today. I think he was always on TV. Today he was saying some kind of nonsense that if you're not wearing a mask, you're violating other people's civil rights. It's the exact opposite, but what you expect from a totalitarian. So anyway, the mask mandates look like they're trying to come back. And what do we know about mask mandates now? Now that we've been in this for over a year, what does it all tell us about mask mandates? Pelosi's reimposing them down in Washington, D.C. But look, if St. Louis, literally the heart of the country, in Missouri, the reddest of all red states, is imposing this, it's something we've always argued. You can't run from this. The dopey utopia is one of our biggest things, and this is another incident of the dopey utopia, because you're going to see these mask mandates attempt to come back. Now, it might be a good thing because it's going to kill the economy, lockdowns, and all the rest of it, as they do. And as Joe Biden's economy tanks more and more, it'll be just like the 1970s again. We already got the double-digit inflation. I don't care what they say; they're completely lying about that. It's already 50%. If you spend $40 on something, you're now spending $60 for something. If you spend $30 to fill up your tank before, now you're spending $60. It's at least 50%, maybe more. So maybe it's a good thing in a lot of ways, but it's coming back. The masks are coming back. We're going to take this little opportunity to talk a little bit about masks. And so what did we learn in this year? First off, we learned also this month that the CDC is now redoing their COVID tests, because last year the flu disappeared. Well, it turns out probably because the COVID test they were using registered a positive for the flu or the COVID. So they now have a new test. Well, at least we're going to get accurate information on that, right? What else do we know? Well, we know that masks do not work. The one test, the best study I saw in the last year was the Army test on masks, and what they found is, short of a M95 full integrated a mask with its own air supply, masks don't work. And here's the problem with the mask: according to the Army study, the more it blocks your forward breath and from going forward, it goes out the sides. Unless, again, you're in a full oxygen suit, that's what's going to happen. So the more you blow, the more it stops this way, the more effective it is this way, the less, the more it goes out. So you could have, you could have a piece of steel in front of you, and all you wind up doing is blowing it out the side. So masks do not work. Now, it might be that you think that it does, and it does. Well, that's fine. It might be good for you. There is the problem with bacteria, so we would suggest you use a disposable mask every day, or if you're going to use one, you have to clean it every day. And it seems to be that there's health problems, we know, that from the bacteria that back up into your system. So it might be that you do more harm to yourself by wearing the mask. Now, about the vaccines, we were told the lie that if you have a vaccine, you don't need to wear a mask. But unfortunately, because down in I think it's in Australia, they're locking down Australia now. The one vaccine, in the one hospital, 99% of the people who have it had the vaccine. Now, what's going on with COVID? Well, COVID, just like any other disease, if you remember remember our dear mother, the medieval historian, telling us that the Black Death, I think 1350, came out in 1350, and it killed off immediately 50% of the population, or up to 50% of the population. It then got less and less effective. As it got less and less lethal, it got more and more spread. and mutate it, and we probably have the Black Death today as some form of a version of a cold. That's what actual medicine, that's what actual viruses do. It's a natural selection. We're going to be talking about natural selection. I prefer the natural, the higher efficiency rather than natural selection, but go with the natural selection. So the most virulent form of the version that was out there killed off its people, the number of people, the host, and it didn't get spread. The less virulent forms spread further because they have more hosts, and that's what you're seeing. The Delta virus version of this, which they're not telling you, spreads a lot easier and more effectively, but it's a lot less lethal. And that's, as you go down the chain of these, you're going to get less and less lethal, more and more spread. All the lockdowns did is delay it for a length of time. Now, they're not telling you also that it's the Black community that's not getting vaccinated for one really good reason. They don't trust the government, and they know better. And as your brother Christopher would tell you, when he researched it, the first run vaccines are notoriously bad and do have a history of doing a lot of harm. But we're not against vaccines, of course, right? I took the vaccine. Why did I take it? Because you do the research on it. The science is solid behind it. You had, if you're going to do you have your clip from Fantastic Voyage?
I have the picture. If you
all right, put it up. So I was hoping for a clip. If you remember your Fantastic Voyage with Raquel Welch in it. Well, it's a clip anyway. She's in the movie. She gets of course surrounded by like tight ropes because she's very beautiful and in it. So if you're going to do immunology 101, the whole purpose of your immune system is that you have a bunch of antigens that identify. Their job is to identify the bad virus, to bind to it, and then that sends a signal to the big white corpuscle in this movie to come and squeeze it and kill it. And so the purpose of a vaccine is to train your body to identify, Dr. Fauci's weaponized Chinese communist Kung Flu virus. And so the old ways they do it do culture after culture of culture. But, the reason why this was done so fast is because we've improved our vaccination process. And now they're not going to tell you this because then people be freaking out because they think they're being irradiated with vaccine with radiation in it. That's not the case. What they do now is they take the vaccine. They take the sample of the bad virus and they irradiate it with like an X-ray machine that you would go to to have your tooth X-rayed. And that doesn't stay in, the radiation doesn't stay in the vaccine. So I don't want to, we're not going to get labeled as false news. No, it goes through, it passes through, kills the RNA so that the deadly spreading part of the vaccine can't replicate, but leaves enough of the vaccine there for your body to identify that. And that's what they do. Now, the trick of it is, of course, they have to give you enough that doesn't overwhelm your system. But not so much as your system doesn't, ignore it. So that's why it's in two levels too, usually, because, the first one is to prime your immune system. And the second one is to, the second vaccine is now this prime is to really get your immune system going. But the best way to handle, anything like this is, as we were told beforehand, hit it with the therapeutics, the HCQ, the zinc. And the number one thing is make sure you have a top-notch immune system as much as possible. Exercise, take your vitamins, and all the rest of it. And, COVID-19 will become less and less of a problem. At least that's the science. But what's going on here, brother? This is not about the science, is it? This is about the dictophiles. Remember, back in our old show, we had the thing, we identified these people that are we call them the dictophiles, spelled DICTO files, meaning they just love dick, as in dictatorship, not in the other kind. Right. DICT, dictator,
Well,
as in the
we've
Latin
never claimed
version.
to be a rated G show, John.
Right. Well, that's good. Dictophiles, but there is this evil in these creeps, like Fauci, who's the perfect example. He's a wannabe little Napoleon that have to dictate to other people, and so the dictophile nature of this, and then the other category, of course, are the lollipop lickers who want a lollipop, suck up to the strong man in power. The idea, of course, is that Fauci is a strong man in power. He's nothing but a dumb bureaucrat who hasn't treated a patient for over 50 years. Okay, but and what is happening is, if you remember, we did a show on the Dunbar number. Funny, we're talking about prisons. That's the number that a person can know effectively. So prisons used to have, in Attica they had a block of 500. That's why they had the riots. In Graterford it was 300. That's why they had riots. Our old jail had 126 per block. That's why you had riots. Current jail practices, they'll never make a jail again without 60, because a CO can't know more than 160. And so the number really isn't 150. It's probably about 60. So there's a psychologist did a study and said, hey, look, all social structures are built on this number. The most famous one that we talked about is, of course, because of our extensive knowledge of history, is that the Roman legions would typically operate with a centurion, which is about for 100. A set of 100. He'd be the centurion, the sergeant of 100 would operate at 60. Up to 200, I think, for the first cohort, but somewhere between 60 and 150 probably is this number of people you can effectively know. What we believe happens in our study for dictophilia that we mentioned back when is that representational government exceeds that, and that's why you get cities and states out of control, like New Jersey and cities like Philadelphia and St. Louis. So it doesn't matter. You could have the most dumbest, New York City or LA, or you could be in the best state of all, Missouri, allegedly. It's not the best state, but the reddest state anyway. And St. Louis is still, under the effect of the dictophiles. And so in St. Louis, one of these nut jobs. As they institute this mass, it's got this mayor, this twit mayor of St. Louis. Mayor is Tulashura Jones. This is one of those creeps who wouldn't celebrate 4th of July. She celebrated umpteens. She got elected. She's going to be sending them reparations to God knows who. And they've imposed, even though the day of they came out with this order, they were imposing this mask mandate through the county executive, this dictophile, Sam Page, despite the fact that the county council, their county council or aldermen, whatever they call them, 5-2 voted against it. And what you're seeing is you're going to see this again and again and again. And it doesn't matter whether I mean, listen, we write off California now and gruesome Newsom. But that started all in LA, and it metastasized into an entire state was taken over. That's why what we're doing, the fight you're doing right now, is so important. This is an evil that once these creeps exceed the Dunbar number and politically of the ability to recall them and take them to know who they are, whether it's Philadelphia, whether it's St. Louis, the very heart of the the country, you're going to see this phenomenon. Now, Brotherhood of Liberty, Brother Christopher told me just today that California is now instituting their rules for PETA on pork, and so that you're not going to get bacon anymore if you're a poor person in California, because it has to be raised humanely. And so once again, California proving again that poor people aren't going to be able to afford bacon. Of course, the rich aren't going to be hurt by it, because I think only like 6% of the farms in California comply with these ridiculous standards that they put on it, thereby taking the bacon out of the poor people's mouths. So again, you might as well saddle up and go to war. Because if you can't fight for the bacon, what can you fight for? It's coming. No matter where you are, these creeps will not stop, because it is their God. That's the secret of the dictophilia. their government becomes their God and becomes their religion. And they're not going to stop, whether it's masks, whether it's vaccination, whether it's the bacon that they're stealing from your plate. So anyway, at this, and this is a perfect example. This story from the Washington Compost is about Faisal Khan, who is who goes to he runs the Department of Health for St. Louis, and he goes to try and explain to the council members why they need this mask mandate. You know, again, we're not against it, but it should be an individual decision. Everybody is the do you have the well, you can finish with the Armageddon one, right? You have that one. All right. Well, hang on to that one. Right. So we're not saying we're against vaccination. We're not against masks, but it should be an individual decision. But here's what this guy says to him. It was the saddest, most bizarre and disgusting thing that I've ever witnessed in my 30 years, because apparently a bunch of people were unhappy about this. Right. And we're showing up to do an insurrection and to display this. And he writes this letter to him after being physically assaulted because somebody bumped him, and racial slurs by Angry Mad. I expressed my displeasure by using my middle finger towards an individual who threatened. So this is the so-called health guy, and he says something that I really, really got my my notice, because he goes on and on and on. And he goes in his letter, he describes how he did public health work across the globe, including in Pakistan. And I'm thinking, you can't have a more dictatorship type of area. You imagine what the public health was. This is what you will do. We will unleash the Taliban upon you, and they will throw acid in your girl's face, right? South Africa. Are you freaking kidding me? ANC is still running South Africa, and they're having, mass murders all over the place. And if it wasn't for militias defending it, it'd be completely wide. That you're going to see a horrible thing happen in South Africa. China, really? You know what, my brother Jim's? They don't have COVID there anymore. They just got rid of it all. They just ordered it.
Yeah.
Australia, which
unfortunately,
this is where this guy's worked. Australia, unfortunately, which is no longer a free country. They took the guns away, and now they're going door to door in Sydney, mandating vaccination. And he mentions Zimbabwe. Hello, Mugabe, freaking. This is not a free country. So then he goes on and says this in his letter, in his statement. Please do not tie our hands behind our back. Please do not seek to take over pandemic emergency response from us, right? And he goes this line: we are not the enemy. Oh no, I am so sorry, Mr. Khan. You definitely are the enemy, and it's because they sup at this totalitarian need to dictate to other human beings how to live their lives. And we, of course, a Ballistic Patriot, believe the exact opposite, believe in the American system, which is the refutation of that. Now would be the time to play the clip.
What are you doing up here? Why did you even bother to make the trip? To do the right thing, to see that it's done. For God's sakes, think about what you're doing. Why are you listening to someone that's 100,000 miles away? We're here. Nobody down there can help us. If we don't get this job done, everybody's gone. 1 minute. I've been drilling holes in the earth for 30 years, and I have never missed a depth that I have aimed for.
That's the one you want, right, brother?
That's the one. Harry Stamper. That's the American way. Why would you listen to somebody who's 100,000 miles away? We're here now. So if you want to wear a mask, and it might be in your position to do it, if you want to be a vax, you're the citizen. You get yourself informed. It's your decision. There should be, no such thing from the enemy of the people, Nancy Pelosi and company. And that's our Who is the Enemy segment on mask and the mask update.
Very solid, brother. Very solid. Very solid.
Thanks.
I had this additional piece that I'm not going to play, but it was from the Patriot. He says, "Are you going to trade one tyrant 3,000 miles away.
Oh, that's awesome.
For
That's
a
just
tyrant
as
that's
good.
3,000 miles. Yeah, but because we do have a tyrant that's right here. Called
Interesting enough,
Fauciism.
New Jersey's not doing it though. New Jersey's not going forward, right? Because he's up for the election.
Yeah, that's because he's facing the election. It's actually we were going to talk about that in the update, but I decided to pass on it because of the time. But yeah, he's supposedly passing on it, but the NJA is pushing to get the mask mandates in. John, I would not be surprised if at some point after November, of course, if we are not locked down. I would not be surprised if we're not going to be doing home instruction. Yeah, if he wins, you can count on it. There's nothing going to stop him after that. So our next segment is atheist bigots and child sex traffickers, or the left-wing zealots of the anti-God, anti-hate America Club. So it's one or the other. You could choose. But we're going to talk about the underpinnings of what is the destruction of the Judeo-Christian values that we in the Western civilization depend on. So let's make sure you put your seatbelt on. Hold on. I'm going to give you a whole bunch of information. The fire hose is turned on. So let's go. So we're going to talk about I've talked about this before in the past about child trafficking and about the border and about the dangers that we face from the border. Of course, John, just as a side note with COVID, there is no testing, no mask wearing necessary for those who are crossing the border. There is no need. They take them, they throw them on a bus, and they send them from somewhere in the country after they cross the border. It's paid by your tax dollars and mine, but that is, and of course, 30% of those people, those young kids whose families are sending them across, hoping that they get a better life. 30% of them will be child sex trafficked before they're 15. So who can be trafficked, John? And the answer is anybody that is vulnerable, which, by the way, John, is children. Children are vulnerable. Children are vulnerable. Even adults, some adults are vulnerable. But children are the most vulnerable. They're the ones who can be sex trafficked. They're the ones who can be taken advantage of. So let's talk about the dangers of the lockdown, since we brought that up. And I'm going to, John, we talk about systemic racism. Well, John, we're going to talk about systemic child trafficking at the hands of, yes, the anti-American hate club. And also, let's not forget, John, those wonderful people that are not wonderful people who are working in the UN and around the entire world. So, yes, David gets, speaking of child trafficking, where's Hillary? Yes, because Epstein, and you're going to be, David, you're going to be exactly right. Epstein and that whole crew, there's an international component to this piece that's coming out. So let's talk about systemic child trafficking. John, the lockdowns were terrible for children, because where's the biggest avenue for child sex trafficking? It's online. And when you take a bunch of kids from 5-year-old all the way up to 18-year-old, and you put them in front of a computer for hours on end with zero or little supervision, and you have them use the internet all the time, and you are getting them to be involved in the internet all the time, you are inviting disaster. Now, John, as you are well aware, the teenage suicide attempts and suicides have gone up. And part of that reason is because child sex trafficking has gone up. You and I were 2 years ago, we're at the Republican Lincoln breakfast, right? It was a brunch. And we got introduced to the world of child sex trafficking and what was going on in it by a lovely speaker who went into the details of it and how they can be our kids. They're in our neighborhoods. They're our kids, our students, and most of them are middle school students. You and I learned a lot about that. It is now worse than that, because not only, John, before there used to be a pimp. Now Facebook is the pimp. That's the middleman to ensure that these kids are getting captured by these pedophiles. There's no other way to describe them. They're pedophiles. I want to make a point here, and I think that this is a key point. These children, they they have been exposed to they're vulnerable, but they're kids that are living in our neighborhoods. They're kids that are our families. They're friends to our families. There are students, there are neighbors, and they can be trafficked by their own family members. And when I say familia, I'm not just talking about family. I'm also talking about adults that are in their life. It could be anybody who they trust, anybody that that can take advantage of them because of that trust. These are the dangerous things that can happen, and that's why we were raised, John, and I know a lot of parents were raised that the kids really don't get close to a lot of other people without the parents knowing more, unless we know more about the parents, and that's part of the message here nowadays. Everyone's Facebook friends, and they know everybody, and they think that that's somehow protecting your child. It's not. So I want to make that point. Pause there so that we can see that part of the problem here is it's with the online presence that our kids have. It's very easy for these predators to get a hold of them. 8 years old is the introduction for boys to pornography. The moment that they start looking at pornography, and we're going to talk about where they're getting exposed, you'll be surprised, John, or it won't be. It's at school. They're going to be introduced to pornography and naked people and curiosity. The moment they start searching that is the moment that they get picked up by the pedophiles and by people who are interested in sex trafficking. Now, be clear, it's not just pedophiles that are doing it. It's people who then take them and use them and rent them and sell them so that, for whatever it may be for somebody else. It's not just for them. They're doing it for others to make money off of this. This is a billion-dollar business for these people, John. Billion-dollar business. So let's go on. Under Trump, see, one of the great things that President Trump did was he ordered that all the, he's done. He was done with this. He didn't want to see this happen. So he said, all the police agencies, you are now required to work together. And what would happen is a sex trafficker in Florida would, the case would be starting to be built up in Florida. That person would know that the heat was coming on him. He'd move to Texas. And that would be, then a new case would have to start over again. Well, under Trump, that didn't happen. Under Trump, that case came over and the investigation continued, and they worked together and they created child trafficking task force to go after him. Under Biden, that is completely fallen apart. They're not only not communicating them anymore, but there's taking away funding from these special task force, and that's a critical area which has been lost. So I want to talk about, when we talk about defund the police, when these clowns talk about defund the police, what they're also doing is they're taking away from these task force. Now, there's all kinds of different task force. The high crimes or the heavy, the
drugs,
victim crimes. Yeah, there's all different task force. But one of those task force, Sean, is child sex trafficking. And here's the important thing about it: you are trained specially to be able to identify, just like your dogs were when you were a canine officer. They were specifically trained to sniff stuff, right? To smell stuff out. These officers, they're not sniffing people out, but they are doing the good. They know where to look. They have the information to do the detective work, the heavy lifting detective work, to figure out who the sex trafficker is, who's being trafficked. That's a big thing. Because, being able to see in these kids, there's key things you can see in a kid. You can see kids, most kids wear stuff on their sleeve. You can see it. You see their emotions on their sleeve. And now these wonderful, very good groups of fighters for our kids are now taken off the field and just thrown on the police desks to deal with whatever phone call comes through for whatever crime. So completely, when you talk about defund the police, next time you hear one of these clowns in the media talk about defunding the police, make sure you explain to them that they're actually letting pedophiles get free, because that's one of the things that gets cut right away, these task force. So I mentioned the border. We're not going to talk about that again. Right now, 13 states making there, because now we're going to get into how does this happen? How is this systemic, Jim? How is this really systemic? Well, brother, the age of consent is 14. They're lowering it to age 14. Now, up to this point, if you are, if you're having sex with a minor, it's considered automatically it's sex trafficking in many states. 13 states are changing the age of consent to 14, John, which means it's going to be more legal for these kids to be trafficked. So right now, the system itself is setting these children up for this kind of danger. There to be no consequences for whatever's done to them. And so the trends in child sex trafficking is the familiar trafficking, the legalizing prostitution, which is again part of that systemic system where you have, if you legalize prostitution, then it's okay. Sex work is okay. It's okay. Whether you are for that or against it is immaterial. It's opening up the doors for our children because, John, let's be clear. If you can't get, if you're already going to be breaking the law, you have this prostitution. Who's going to be prostituted? It's going to be the most vulnerable people who are going to be prostituted. And again, who are the most vulnerable people in our society? The children. The children are the most vulnerable. And third, of course, is infiltration in the school systems. And so now, John, here it is, systemic child trafficking. All right. You ever hear this guy, Alfred Kinsey?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a dirtbag. I don't know any other way to describe him. He was using sexual studies of 6-week-old kids and to see where their orgasm was. He was paying one pedophile to do all this stuff to investigate children to see when their orgasm would be, when they would be something that would be they're able to have sex. This guy, he is absolutely something that should be looked at as evil. Yet he is praised, John, as the founder of modern sexual theory, and he is what is used primarily by places like the UN and Planned Parenthood and other left-wing groups like that as a model. This guy helps to form the manifesto for for sexual education in our around the entire world. Because, John, as you'll see in this next slide, it's not there. It's not there. It is. As you see, the Comprehensive Sex Ed program, which is done by World Health Organization. John, the World Health Organization. Do I need to say anything more about how bad this thing is? Just starting off with them, the same clowns who think that China didn't bring the virus to the world. These clowns, the ones that bought and paid for Chinese, these clowns are part of the driving force behind the Comprehensive Sex Ed and Purple Haze. This is going to be important for those people that you and I talked about. They are also working with the United Nations about creating this comprehensive sex ed plan, which is already here in our country in places like California and Washington State, and places that are left-wing areas of our country are adopting the comprehensive sex ed. Now, John, I got to tell you, this is going to surprise you. You ever hear when they talk about, well, they're teaching kids, they're teaching 5-year-olds about sex. They're teaching, masturbation to 9-year-olds, to 4th to 5th graders. John, you ready for this? As you look, I'm going to just jump ahead. I'll come back to that in a minute. But if you look at this right here, the 5 to 8-year-olds, I don't know if you can see it on your screen, 9 to 12-year-olds, if you look at it, they're teaching 9 and 12 years old, John. That's not grades 9 to 12. That's 9 to 12 years. They're teaching them masturbation.
Ugh.
Masturbation, John. Masturbation. So at 9 to 12 years old, it gets worse. So they have this thing called the genderbread person. This is all documented. I have the links. I'm actually decided after I did some of my research, I'm going to write something up about this because this is disgusting on a higher level than disgusting, where they teach gender identity and they start to question, well, you're not a boy, you're not a girl, at little kids. And John, they have this genderbread person say, oh, this might make you feel a little hungry. That's okay if you feel a little hungry, but they, they kind of like soft soap it. It's targeting our children, not our high school kids, but our little kids, our little 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds, brother. And if you look at this, the 5 to 8-year-olds, the learning objectives, define, and I'll see if I can run my mouse over it, define gender and biological sex and describe how they are different. John, how do you describe that they're different? You show them pictures of boobies and you show them pictures of genitalia.
To 9-year-olds and 12-year-olds?
5 to 8-year-olds, John. 5 to 8-year-olds. Reflect on how they feel about their biological sex and gender. So, in other words, it's okay for you to question your gender.
These are teachers, James?
No, John. This is the comprehensive sex ed program that is being pushed by Planned Parenthood. I forgot them. Planned Parenthood, the International Planned Parenthood, the UN, UNESCO, and the WHO, and a couple other. But it's already in our schools.
But it's sex ed by teachers. Are these teachers doing it?
Run by teachers. Yes. Oh. Yeah, I'm sorry. The answer to your question is yes. It's done by teachers, are the ones teaching it. And John, if you're a teacher like me who would say, I'm not teaching this garbage, you know what they do? You know what the answer to that is?
No, what?
That's okay. We'll have somebody from Planned Parenthood come in and do it.
Oh, yeah.
So, I wanted to, let me see if I can go back to this point right here, because this is an important point. I skipped over because I went to drive it home. The desensitization of sex. That's what this is. When you do it to the 5-year-olds, to the 9-year-olds, when you desensitize them to the sexual organs, it makes them more able to. Yes, it is, David. It is crazy that it's happening, but it is. It makes it more easy for them to be trafficked. It makes them more vulnerable because I'm looking up boobs. What the teacher's talking to me about sex. So this strange guy who's interested in me is also talking about sex. So it's got to be okay.
It normalizes
desensitization.
Yeah,
it normalizes
pedophilia.
And it does, John. And that's, by the way, MAMBLA is also one of the organizations behind this, which is the man-boy love thing where they think it's okay for men to have sex with boys. And I want to, not to say that, this is not just a government problem, like where the governments are doing bad things. This is also our commercial businesses out there, because here's, the media, if you look up here, the Teen Vogue is working actively to teach kids how to take naked selfies. And you'll see from the quote here, so you're curious about taking and sharing nude pics. This is from the article that's listed right there. You're welcome to go do a Google search on it right now at Teen Vogue. When is it safe to send a partner nude photos? This is Teen Vogue. This is not Vogue. This is for teenagers. And they're encouraging them to send, hey, it's okay to share nude pics of yourself. We're going to tell you how to get the best light for it. John, this is absolutely the bottom of the barrel. When you see this, you gotta say what is wrong with our country. And by the way, there's the link at the bottom right if you're interested. Get very familiar with yourself. Pose in a mirror, caress your silhouette. Know your naked angles. This is what is a Teen Vogue. It's like 12 pages long. And it goes on and on. And I didn't have to, this wasn't a hard piece to find, John. This was not hard to find. And it's very available. You don't have to pay to get this article. So that is my child sex trafficking. So I guess to sum it all up, brother, when you look at the when I say systemic child sex trafficking, I'm not talking about something that's made up like the systemic racism. I'm talking about it has been organized. It is being set up by the governments of our country to do this kind of teaching to our kids so that they are desensitized to sex, so that they are more willing to see it happen and to be trafficked. And also, John, to have their morals be thrown in the toilet. When you're now being told you can share naked pictures of yourself, where is that acceptable? Why is that acceptable?
I think that's called child porn, and somebody should be going away for like 3 years for each picture, something like that.
And it should be called endangering children. But John, they're using to show these pictures. They're using the same law that allows you to have biology textbooks, showing naked body.
They're shielding
anatomical.
It.
It's the shield. It's shielding it. They're using the same law that are used for the libraries to have these pictures in there for real. For like the older kids. That's how it's able to get into the schools. They're now teaching it as part of the course. So back to you, brother.
No, it's already. I think it's been like I think we're out of time there, brother.
We are, but do you want to do any of your last segment?
I think it would take too long.
All right. Well, I mean that's fine. We did have a lot of good conversations tonight. We did definitely nail a few things.
We'll have to leave Baldini and Evolution for another show. Because we're going to be asked, are you for evolution? And the list of Patriot has got to be, yeah, of course we're for evolution, not Darwinian, not that idiot Darwinian stuff. We're there for the Baldinian evolution.
I just want to share one thing about your COVID thing, about the mask thing, because I saw this and I wanted to share it. This is what you would see from the New York Post. You'll note that this is 161 million vaxxed U.S. residents. That's what that whole box is. Now, this little tiny red box is the 5,600 who have caught the COVID Delta variant, right? And who have been vaccinated. And this is why they want to put the mask mandate on. And according to the New York Post, that little yellow dot down there, that little tiny one, is the 1,100 that have died because of the Delta variant.
Yeah.
That's why they want to put
that is good, because the one thing we know is that these fools have been wrong about everything they've said and have done everything wrong. For example, why do we have Walmarts open in the middle of the pandemic when the little bodegas are closed? If you were trying to not spread or not have a super spreader incident, and whether it survives on the floor or not, you would think that containing it in little tiny bodegas would be a lot better than sending it to Walmart. And yet, so what this just goes to show you is everything they tell us is a lie. Everything that they said so far has been wrong. Again, it's an individual decision. I made the decision because of the medical problems in my house to get the vaccination. But you might be, I'm not taking that risk. And that's your decision because you're right there. And that's why it cannot. These mandates are illegal, or not only are they constitutionally illegal, but they're anti-American and must be fought at all costs because they're wrong and they're dangerous. These creeps like Fauci are out and out dangerous. He's the idiot who caused it to begin with. How come he's not locked up behind bars? But that's another story.
That's it. That's next week's show.
Maybe.
All right, brother. On that note. Thank you all for being here. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you tell your friends about us. Make sure you share this. Get the message out, because the more people who hear about this stuff, the more we can fight back, the more we can push back, and the more we can take back our country. The election is around the corner. November is the New Jersey and Virginia election. And then next year, of course, is the congressional election, where we hope to get President Trump as the Speaker of the House. That would be awesome. Again, I'm just dropping that out there. Again, that would be awesome if he was Speaker of the House and then did impeachment trials against Biden and Kamala. But that's another story for maybe next week too, brother. On that note, take care, everybody. Like and subscribe. Brother, it's all good.
Because God loves you.
Because God loves you.
Fight and you may die. Run and you'll live. At least a while. And dying in your beds many years from now, would you be willing to trade all the days from this day to that for one chance, just one chance, to come back here and tell our enemies that they may take our lives, but they'll never take our freedom!